Be strong.
Well, a good morning and a very, very happy Thursday to everyone here from the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel. What's going on, everyone? The Throw-In with Justin, 2 hours, 9 to 11. And boy, we got a lot to talk about coming off of a big night last night. AEW Dynamite Grand Slam. Wow. You know, I told you guys that this was going to be a busy week in general, just in professional wrestling. You know, Raw is elevating on Monday. You got, you know, Judgment Day reaffirming a couple of title shots on Monday Night Raw. You know, Kevin Owens and Austin Theory was going to do battle. And then you head into Tuesday, and I think Tuesday kind of struck me by surprise because, you know, I was unaware that Solo Sikoa was not sanctioned to be in the North American Championship match previously, and I thought that, you know, he you know, an extra title on the Bloodline is essential. Okay. And then, you know, this week on Dynamite, you know, and AEW in general, because I know Friday is expected to be just as big as last night was, but you know, we had two amazing title matches that was put up for grabs and a couple other title matches as well that, I mean, I just, you know, I wasn't aware of, and they probably went out there earlier that, you know, yesterday after we went off air here for having, you know, a couple extra title matches, and we'll have plenty of time to talk about some of the things that happened last night. And I kind of want to get your thoughts. I really want to pick your brain, you know, get your questions in, see if, you know, if what happened last night was satisfying to you. And if this is a new era, I mean, every once in a while, okay, AEW always has the ability to surprise the wrestling fans. You know, one thing that I've notated, and I've said this previous times on other programs on this show or other shows on this program, is that AEW has set the bar high from the beginning. The matches that they put on the regular weekly shows, they set pretty damn high. And I'll just be straightforward with that. I mean, cage matches, blood matches, death matches. I mean, if you could think of it, they most likely have had it on AEW, whether it's on Dynamite or it's on Rampage. All right, and they're always notorious for having title matches. Now, I'm always a big fan of titles being defended on product because I feel that that's one way to promote your business. Because at the end of especially when the event is live, at the end of the day, you don't know, you know, if something slips and the, you know, ring of, you know, just take example, Claudio versus Chris Jericho last night. Now, I'm going to pre-warn you that this is a spoiler. So if, you know, you have not seen AEW yet, you know, last night, you guys are destined and wanting to watch it before you listen to this program, I suggest that you stop what you're doing. All right, hit that pause button. Don't not, you know, come back and listen to the rest of this program, but hit that pause button. Go back and watch AEW Dynamite Grand Slam last night, and then come back and talk about it because there will be spoilers coming out here momentarily. But just take, for example, Claudio taking on Chris Jericho last night from the Ring of Honor television championship. And let's say if that match is live, that match is taken right there in this place. And, most of the time, I'm going to say most of the time, you're expected for a title to remain on the hands of the champion. I mean, usually, and this is talking more so like WWE, because WWE will have title matches once in a while on a regular brand, just like last Monday when Bobby Lashley defended the United States Championship against Seth Rollins. You could almost be certain that that title stays with Bobby Lashley. That's just how it is. That's how it goes. You have guys, all right, there's just a time and place to change hands. Normally at a pay-per-view is the perfect time when you want to change a storyline. At least that's how the WWE goes. And my mindset for the past 25 years has been, hey, it's kind of whatever WWE has gone through. But AEW is showing you a different side. They're not afraid because they have less pay-per-views. All right, they're not afraid to put a title match on a live show, and they're not afraid to crown titles on a live show, and they're not afraid to change the hands of a champion on a live show. And that's what makes AEW interesting to watch and tune into, especially when you have a magnitude show like this. You don't see them very often, right? The last time that I really got interested in seeing in a regular Wednesday night Dynamite was back at the St. Patrick's Day Slam this year when Dr. Britt Baker defended her AEW Women's Championship against Thunder Rosa. And that was a year in the making. Let's not forget about that. So last night, there was a sense of urgency of, hey, if you're a wrestling fan and you knew AEW and you wanted to see really good, promising product out of a wrestling show, AEW last night was the event to watch. All right. I'm not decrediting or, what's to come on SmackDown this Friday. I'm not decrediting what's to come, what happened on Monday Night Raw, because I tell you, Monday Night Raw was a good show. It's been getting a better show. It's becoming that flagship show that what it once was. And I think the separation between the Raw and SmackDown, I'll just put this out real quick, is that the bloodline was forming. They were still growing, and you kind of always wanted to see who was dethroning them. And they really set their eyes on SmackDown for a period of time while you're growing the bloodline. Well, I really feel that the bloodline, there's no movement right now on SmackDown. All right. The bloodline runs the tag team division. The bloodline runs the WWE Undisputed Championship division. Other than Liv Morgan and Ronda Rousey, which this is now a take 3 in the making. First off, with Liv Morgan cashed in, or I want maybe take it apart 2, right? Liv Morgan cashing in her Money in the Bank contract on Ronda Rousey, winning the SmackDown Women's Championship, and then they have a rematch where Liv Morgan pulled off of an impressive victory, and now they're set place to have it again. And it's not becoming, but then on top of that, you see the Brawling Brutes take on the New Day every day of the week. Now they're focused on taking care of Imperium, and that's an ongoing battle. And I think one thing that disturbs me is that we're so used to seeing, because we were seeing this each and every week, where the Usos or the New Day, for example, was taking on the Brawling Brutes each and every week on SmackDown, and it became a little stale when you had the same feud going on and there was nothing more to tell in that feud. So that was something to keep an eye out, and that's why it kind of got stale. But I feel like SmackDown right now, they've already built themselves up. They can't go any higher because of where the bloodline's at. Therefore, you can't really surprise much of anybody right now. They're still putting off great content, but Raw, they have something much more to throw at. I mean, you got the Judgment Day trying to recruit new people. It's still you still want to tune in each and every week just to figure out what's going on between Dominic Mysterio and his father, Ray. I mean, you also got, Braun Strowman making his return, so you want to tune in and see whatever, what that fuss is all about. And so what you're initially seeing on Raw is that you're seeing storylines being created, something that Raw hasn't had in months is good storylines. And now you want to see how they develop. You want to see how Bailey, she's on her approach to winning the Raw Women's Championship, a new change of scenery. So that's why Raw is interesting to watch over the last few weeks, is because there's new reinventions to storylines and to feuds and to whatnot. But AEW Dynamite Grand Slam, what a big night it was last night. I was excited to watch it. A few things I took away from it. All right. Obviously, I was very shocked in actually some of the outcome to the matches. I want to first start off with Claudio and Chris Jericho kicking off the show last night. I didn't get a chance to watch the entire show. Yeah, you don't get off of work until later. I got home. I tuned in. I was destined to tune in to the John Moxley and Bryan Danielson match in the main event. And, it was a main event for what it's worth and for being a Wednesday night. And I have a little bit more thoughts I want to share on that a little later on in the program. But, what did you guys think? Were you guys happy with the results? Claudio Lou dropping the Ring of Honor championship. I think you have to go out there and say, hey, Chris Jericho, he's destined to go out there and capture all the gold. I mean, he's really, he's one of the few versatile athletes that can head in from WCW to WWE to New Japan Pro Wrestling to AEW. I mean, there's just any style of wrestling. He's been through it all. And at the age he's at and where he's at in his career, to still go out there and put on really good matches. I mean, he may not be the best physical shape possible, but you got to give the guy a pat on the back for what he's been able to accomplish. And this Ring of Honor championship now, it's just an add to his resume. And I think it helps out Ring of Honor because, Chris Jericho does great promotion with companies. And I think, you throw titles on from Ring of Honor to guys like Claudio and Samoa Joe. And don't get me wrong, these are great athletes in the ring. All right, they represent those championships very well. They represent the company with dignity and with utmost respect. But the problem that you run into is that you just need that it factor. And, now you have AEW kind of in the forefront of Ring of Honor. And what you want to see now, and at least what I want to see now, is why not throw one of your veteran guys, the guys that, who's been there, done that, and that can kind of uplift a Ring of Honor's product. And I think that's what Ring of Honor needs. Ring of Honor is always going to be lower than AEW. All right. As long as AEW is in charge, they're never going to be equal, if not higher. They're always going to be lower than AEW. All right. Because that's what AEW is not going to allow. They're just simply not going to allow Ring of Honor to get anywhere better than. But what they're going to do is try to push Ring of Honor to their best. And what they're going to do by now Chris Jericho having the Ring of Honor Television Championship is, all right, we're going to now push and promote the hell out of, Ring of Honor's championship. And now if you want to watch Jericho, because there are so many fans there are so many Chris Jericho fans, all right, they're going to go to find a way to tune in to Ring of Honor if they have not already done so. So I think this is really great for business for Ring of Honor. I am excited to see the new Versity. It's been also quite some time. Chris Jericho has had some really good feuds with some really good people. One over the past year to remember is the big feud that he's had with Eddie Kingston. All right. So I really think that this is a really good opportunity, to put a title back on Chris Jericho. He does deserve a title spot. All right. And not saying that, hey, he deserves an arm and a leg, for what he has been through. But he has fought some really incredible matches. He was part of those war games for AEW when they had those a couple months ago. All right. No one can forget about that. You can't forget about Eddie Kingston's feud that just keeps on tackling it, kept on tackling himself. Eventually And I want to dive into this a little bit later on, whether it's not today or whether it's later on this week. But eventually, I think I want to talk about possible feuds for Chris Jericho. I mean, is the Eddie Kingston and Chris Jericho feud done? I mean, and now with Chris Jericho having a championship around his waist, there's something a little bit more for Eddie Kingston to battle through. You think of a guy who's really put himself out there and really for the age he is, and he's still battling like he's new to the business and he has something to prove. It never seems that Eddie Kingston could get over the hump. So I guess that's my question, and that's my thought process for the week. Can Eddie Kingston get over that hump? And maybe it's through Chris Jericho. I sure hope it is, because that's the feud that you want to see, and maybe it has to do with the Ring of Honor TV Championship. So a lot happened with Ring of Honor. Some returns we'll talk about. Well, at least one return that is big that we'll talk about. We'll talk about the Jon Moxley and Bryan Danielson match. I want to know what your thoughts were. All right. Was this match, was this a good match? Was this match like I said, spoiler alert. If you don't want to know who won between Jon Moxley and Bryan Danielson, pause this show, go back and watch the match, and then come back and get my thoughts on it. But is everyone happy with Jon Moxley having the AEW World Championship again? I know it probably feels the right way, but are you really happy? Or are you a little disappointed that that Bryan Danielson didn't win the AEW World Championship? And I think that there's a reasoning from what I've read on social media for Tony Khan's announcement last night. I think there's a reason, because I believe this Friday there will be a 25-man battle royal to determine the new number one contender that will face Jon Moxley on, I want to say, October 18th episode of Dynamite or something like that, where there will be in Cincinnati, Ohio, right at the Heritage Bank Arena. First time at the Heritage Bank Arena, and that's going to be a big event for Jon Moxley, getting to compete in his hometown. And it's going to be a big, because remember, last time they came out here, I don't think Jon Moxley was able to compete because he went into rehab, or he took care of himself. So, I think that's going to be something to be excited to go down and look through. But I mean, hey, listen, I got different thoughts on it. So I'll share with you that today, later on in our program. We got a lot to talk about. 2 hours on this show. The Reds beat the Boston Red Sox 5-1 last night. They'll get ready to kick off a 4-game series against Milwaukee. And we'll get you the highlights and everything updated, everything that you need to know with the Reds coming into a Milwaukee series this weekend. Let's not forget about some of the other games that are going around town. Really great series so far between the Cardinals and the Padres. That wraps up today, so we'll talk about that. We'll get you a breakdown of the standings and the wild card race as of right now. And then let's not forget about the NFL. We'll talk a little bit about Bengals football as they get ready to go to New York and face those Jets and Joe Flacco. And then there's also Thursday night football between the Steelers and the Cleveland Browns. So we're just getting underway here on a Thursday morning. Thank you guys for tuning in to the Throw-In with Justin. Taking you guys up until 11 o'clock. And listen, I got a great show for you today. I'm excited. I woke up. It's the first day of fall, and I'm just ready to get going. Thank you guys for tuning in and listening to the Throw-In with Justin right here on the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel. $924 here on the Throw-In on the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel. Thank you guys for tuning in to us weekdays from 9 to 11. If you guys miss any episode or any segments, you guys go back and listen to them. If not, you guys can head on over to Spotify, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, and anywhere you get your podcast stations, and download us at the Throw-In with Justin. It's the Throwing with Justin, weekdays from 9 to 11. Don't miss a single segment. And man, we got a lot of stuff to talk about. I went to bed pretty late last night. I got home around, I want to say 8:30, 8:40, 9 o'clock, grabbed some dinner with the wife. And now, we sat down, ate dinner, went to bed, and turned on the, last, the main event match of AEW Dynamite between Jon Moxley and Bryan Danielson. And then we ended up, watching that match. Then we, from there, right as soon as the match ended, I tuned right to the Padres game because that was the game for me. Playoff implications. That was the game to watch. And boy, the last two games between the Padres and the Cardinals, if you haven't watched that series, a series that I've been desperately telling you to watch, then there's something wrong with you. It's baseball time. It's playoff time. This is a series where you're expecting to watch one team to dominate. And to be honest, I was expecting those Cardinals to dominate, and they go on and lose. Albert Pujols have been shut down. He hasn't hit a home run. He hasn't really been hitting the ball lately in San Diego. And usually the Cardinals are notorious for just beating up on those Padres. Being a Padres fan for a long time, it's always a teeth grinding each time you hear you got to face the St. Louis Cardinals. We'll talk a little bit more about baseball a little bit later on. Okay. NFL's coming up a little bit also today. We'll talk about getting you guys ready for week number 3. Thursday night football begins tonight between the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Cleveland Browns. And then we're going to get you a little bit ready for the Cincinnati Bengals and the New York Jets. I was watching some Sports Center right afterwards, probably hit the bed about 1 or 2, woke up, and I felt amazing just because it's the first day of fall, you guys. Yeah, first day of fall. And the great way to end off summer last night was the thing is, was be with AEW Dynamite. We'll talk about that here a little bit more as we talk about Jon Moxley taking on Bryan Danielson for the AEW World Championship. Like I said, spoiler alert, if you're just tuning in or you guys are listening to the program and you have not seen the main event to the match and you guys want to watch it before you hear my thoughts and my takes, I would suggest to pause the show right now, watch the match, and then come back and listen to us when you get done. That's what I suggest. But, listen, I woke up today. I was excited because yesterday was about 95, about mid to high 90s. And I was like, yesterday it was going to be a drag. I was going to be sweating at work. I got a little break at work, which it felt great in the middle of the week. Wasn't as hot as I thought it was. Yes, I was sweating, but I just didn't feel, it wasn't the heat that made me felt uncomfortable. I really didn't feel uncomfortable at all yesterday at work. So I felt pretty good. And then came on up to morning, and when you got to wear a jacket in the morning to go, take the girls to school, that's when in the mid 60s that it's fall time, the season changing. You're looking at the weather down the week, at least out here, that there's gonna be a couple of 80-degree days, but mostly 60s, 70s throughout the next couple of weeks. I'm very excited. I take advantage. I tell everyone this is that my philosophy about when it comes down to weather is that I want to get up to the coldest weather possible, just because for me, my body just doesn't work well in the heat. All right. If I don't get up past a certain time, if I wake up to it being 80 degrees, my body just does not work well. The summer is a drag. So excited that the weather's cooling down. Where is it at you guys at this today as we get ready to head into a weekend? Is it cooling down for you guys? Well, it's really cooling down from a very heated day yesterday. Dynamite was last night. Rampage, one of more successful shows, so I've been told, and rightfully doing so. When you have title ships on the line, we crowned new tag team titles last night. I mean, this was something else. You got Swerve of Glory with Swerve Strickland and Limitless Keith Lee, and I'm not saying that they were doing a bad job carrying those AEW World Tag Team titles, right? But the acclimate. I think they've been building their case. Matt Caster Anthony Bowens. They're all building their case over the past several weeks, working with Billy Gunn on this and that. And I mean, an incredible match. I was watching some of the highlights, and I want to get just first and foremost congratulate the new crowned AEW World Tag Team Champions, Max Caster, Anthony Bowens. Phenomenal job. And it's a new position. When you have, like I said, like I mentioned, Swerve Strickland, Keith Lee, nothing against them with holding those titles. But sometimes holding those titles is a temporary movement until you could pass it on. And when you don't have, when you're not as a big of a build as some of these other teams are, or as some of these other individuals are, then sometimes it's a good idea for every few weeks, give them, 1, 2 months, 3 months at most, and then change hands, keep it changing. There's titles, in every program that you're going to want 1 or 2 people to hold on to for a long period of time, right? There are titles that you're going to have them hold on for a whole year. And then there's titles that you're going to want to change, and it keeps things spiced up, and it keeps things, entertaining, and it gives the new people an opportunity. And you really have to give credit where credit's due out of the performances that you've seen by Matt Caster and Anthony Bowens over the last few months. As a matter of fact, they're a team that I used to hate all the time. I was pretty much sick of them, and they won the hard way. They won my respect. Okay. So that was one of the big things that came out of AEW last night. New World Tag Team Champions. We got new Ring of Honor TV champion and Chris Jericho. Let's talk about this. Let's talk about, we had a good match between Pac and Orange Cassidy. I think that for what it's worth, for being a Wednesday night, it kind of one of those setters of a match, kind of like those intermissions of the match, and I really, it was a good match. I will say the least. It was a good enough match. But I think the two key highlights coming out of last night's episode, in my opinion, is that you have Saraya, all right, aka Paige, making her in-ring or making her debut and being all elite. Now, I know that there was rumors and there was talks about Paige, and I'm going to refer to Paige for a little while, just as we get used to hearing Saraya. And I'm not familiar with the character Saraya as much as I do so Paige. And I liked how AEW last night, when Saraya made her debut, how they went ahead and they said Paige, something that, WWE, and it really helps the clarification on who this person was. So if you never watched WWE before and you never seen her before, you could kind of reference, all right, I'm going to go home tonight. I'm going to go search up Saraya. And if I don't find nothing on her, I could search up WWE Paige. And so I really enjoyed that. She came out to save Athena and basically cleared the ring by making everyone scramble. Everyone was fierce of seeing her, and they referenced Dr. Britt Baker standing in the ring, and they referenced Dr. Britt Baker as if she saw a ghost, and so I mean, I was kind of optimistic about that. I didn't really know what the reference was, and maybe someone could fill me in at a later time. But, Paige has been gone from the professional wrestling world for a long time. We knew her departure from the WWE, and we knew the reason why WWE was not clearing her to compete inside the ring was because of an injury. I mean, she returned, and then she got injured with her neck again. After seeing guys like Edge, go through his injuries, I mean, and guys like Bryan Danielson, there was a moment, guys like Edge and Bryan Danielson had to hang up their boots at one point in their career because they thought wrestling was over with because they had a significant amount of injuries that just couldn't put them back in the ring. All right. Paige was one of them. And, you felt so bad because, she was the fastest rising woman the WWE. She really rose to star power, knocking, not only winning, she right away winning the women's championship, making that belt what it was, part of that evolution era, okay, with the Bella twins and all of them. And she didn't really get the opportunity to kind of, I mean, embrace herself and kind of sit there on the other end. She put in the hard work, but she didn't get a chance to sit there on the other end and really give themselves something to talk about, and really give back. Okay, she was part of the whole total, divas from point in time, and I think that there was a lot of people after her relationship status where it came out, and there was the positives and the negatives about it. There's just kind of people that were just kind of done with Paige. And to finally see her in AEW with a product that, I think is a good knocking opportunity to kind of get back into wrestling, because if she is looking to get in-ring ability, in-ring return, I don't think they're going to have to use her each and every week. Not Ring of Honor, excuse me. AEW is very good at spreading out talent that needs the extra rest. You don't see Sting in the ring each and every week. And it's sometimes, you could get away with just being on the sidelines or being in the backstage or just being down at ringside during a match. But Saraya making her debut in AEW, I really, I want to hear what your thoughts are. What are plans for her? Now, I'm not going to go into getting, matches and plans that I have for Saraya. I think time will tell. But I am, excited to see her. I hope she gets an opportunity. One thing over the last few years that I've noticed is that, if you can, if a wrestler can, right, there's a lot of wrestlers out there that can't pick and choose how they leave the wrestling world. It's how the nature of the beast works, with injuries. But if you can, if you do feel sympathy for a person who chose to get into the business and will like to walk away on a positive note, you think of Edge, right? Maybe wanting to win, think of Edge and AJ Styles and Rey Mysterio, guys who are kind of creeping up in their career, ready to retire. I mean, the whole reason why they come back, they want to leave on their own terms. They want to leave on a positive note. They want to feel satisfied. That's why Taker kept on coming back each and every year, because he didn't feel satisfied enough for the performance that he put out there last, right? Because that at the end of the day does and will haunt you like there's no other. You also take a look at guys like Goldberg and all that stuff. So I mean, there's there's a case on why Paige is in AEW, not just for the built-up of AEW and not just because she wants to be at the sideline. I can only assume that there is a point in time that she's going to want to get back in the ring. And is she capable of getting back in the ring? Absolutely. I 100% support it. But at the same time, AEW is not going to force her to get into the ring each and every week. She's not going to be, she's going to get the proper rest she needs. She's going to get the medical care. I believe that there's a strong women's division that's going to take good care of her in the ring. And I'm very, very excited to see Saraya in AEW and see what she has to offer and all that stuff. Well, hey, we got to cut to a break, but coming up next, when we come back, man, like I said, AEW Grand Slam, big night, big night. If you haven't watched it, watch it, tune into it. When we come back, we'll talk about the main event. Jon Moxley taking on Bryan Danielson for the AEW World Championship. All right. MJF was holding that poker chip up in the press boxes, and they really emphasized MJF last night on the TV. We'll talk about all of that at the bottom of the hour. Don't forget, still to come, let's talk about some baseball, you guys. Reds about to kick off a 4-game series, as well as Thursday night football. Taking you guys up until 11 right here on the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel. The TNC Sports Talk would like to give a shout out and thanks to StreamYard Studios, the proud home of the Throw-In with Justin, weekdays from 9 to 11. For more information about StreamYard Studios, check out StreamYard.com. You can create your podcast, YouTube videos, host virtual business meetings, and even conduct interviews. Check out the free version today at StreamYard.com. Big hour number 1, wrapping up here on a Thursday morning. A lot to talk about tomorrow as well. There's plenty of stuff to talk about this week. You know, NBA, I was just reading it. NBA starts October 19th. And just next week, I want to say September 30th, which I don't have my calendar out. So let me check that for you. So starting next Friday, NBA preseason kicks underway. And NBA has their top 100s of players and the possible 100s, and I post all of that on the TNC Sports Talk Facebook page. So sometime probably next week, to get ready into the NBA season, we will dive into the top 100, and I want to hear from you guys what you guys think, who deserves to be in the top 100, who doesn't, and if you agree with the rankings that they're at. You know, I'm not a big basketball person. I'll watch more close to the playoffs. I'll listen into the news, but you know, it's basketball season. And as baseball winds down and as the playoff approaches in October, you know, basketball is going to be done. You know, baseball is going to be done with here fairly quickly. Right? You think about it, just about a month left of Major League Baseball left to be played. Got to talk about other sports. There's only so much wrestling, so much football to talk about. We try to talk about college football, and all week long I've been trying to figure out where to place college and high school football. You know, normally, all right, if I was doing if I did a show back on Monday, which I apologize, I wasn't on the air Monday, but if I did a show back on Monday, you know what I would have done? I would have talked about college football. I would have talked about high school football and the results over the weekend. And then tomorrow I would have come on and gave you the results for high school and for college. But that didn't happen because didn't have a show on Monday. Now, I didn't think that there was a point to give it to you right away on a Tuesday. And I just, you know, I have all my notes laid out, information, rankings, top 5, top 125, whatever, big games to be played and whatnot. I just never got time to it on Tuesday. So, and it happens because, you know, even though I miss a day, days move on. Sports still takes precedence. You know, instead of having time to talk about Monday Raw, I had to talk about the highlights of Monday Night Raw. So, looking tomorrow, we'll talk about high school football. We'll get you ready for some of those games. I know a couple colleagues of mine that just know that have been, you know, big about sports, especially local sports. Talked a lot about high school football. There's a couple of key things I wanted to approach tomorrow night or tomorrow morning, excuse me. And then also on top of that, I want to talk about some college football. And then, like you said, next week, we're going to do this together. All right. I don't know if it's going to be a success, but I'm going to do this together with you guys talking about NBA. Get you guys ready for the NBA season because there is stuff to talk about. For example, prime example, the Phoenix Suns is on the approach to be having a new ownership probably in the next few months. So that's exciting. That's always exciting to hear about and talk about. So we'll talk about that. That's still all to come tomorrow, if not next week. And as our stories unfold, I'll break them down to you. Okay. I don't want to jump into a category that I'm not well familiarized with and then just start talking about it like I know it. And when I really don't know it. And I don't want to give you the wrong information. So But we're going to approach it. We're going to work together, and we're going to do it together, and we're going to have fun together doing it. And if it works out, it works out. If it doesn't, then we'll figure something else out. But we're going to at least try. All right. Talking about AEW Dynamite Grand Slam last night. As I mentioned, I know there was a lot to talk about in hour number 1. And we're wrapping up here because the main event last night was the main event that, probably shouldn't have been the main event between Jon Moxley and Bryan Danielson. And the whole story goes is CM Punk beat Jon Moxley for the AEW World Championship back at All Out pay-per-view. He gets into an altercation with executives, EVPs in AEW backstage for comments that he made about them during a press conference. He gets suspended, and he's also serving. He also is dealing with an injury that's going to put him up on the injury list for about 6 to 8 months. And so we're going to sit here and we're going to wish CM Punk a speedy recovery. But wrestling world moves on with or without you. And Tony Khan had a idea to create a new AEW championship. Now, this is not an interim champion. This was an actual crowning of a champion. CM Punk was stripped, and they had to he had to relinquish his title, and we had to find out a new championship. And it was a great tournament, to say the least. But Bryan Danielson, Jon Moxley, 2 members of the Blackpool Combat Club. All right, and last night it was a Blackpool Combat Club night because Claudio defended his Ring of Honor TV champion, and that went south. You had I forgot what his Yuta Wheeler got involved with MJF last night, as well as MJF comes out and cuts another promo. But the main picture of last night was Bryan Danielson and Jon Moxley. Now, I came to you yesterday and I told you that I wanted to see Bryan Danielson win. And, I want to get your thoughts. Jon Moxley goes on and winning his 3rd AEW World Championship by not pinfall, by not submission, but by pass out. He choked Bryan Danielson out. And for the match purposes, the match was a decent match for what it was. All right. For being a Wednesday night, for being a title match, for being everyone excited about it, it was a decent match. The problem I had with the match is, and that's the other thing I want to say before I say the problem I have with the match. The one thing I want to say about the match, these are 2 guys that have fought each other, have been through hell and back with each other multiple times. And these 2 guys they knew each other very well. And you saw that during the match. Okay. They took a lot of chops. They took a lot of beat downs. They kept on going back and forth. And every time Bryan Danielson got onto a rhythm, Jon Moxley got back onto a rhythm, and vice versa. It was not a one-sided match. I believe Bryan Danielson got a little bit more offensive in, but some of those chops, man, I felt them. Some of those, and there was really no spectacular high-flying moves that was really say, holy crap moment, but they shared. It was a very physical beat down from both men. It was almost as if they were in a fight pit. In this case, it was more technical moves, which for a championship match you got a chance to see, and I enjoyed watching that. It was a new kind of taste of a match, more of submissional style matches, and I really enjoyed the match. But the problem I had with it is that they every minute and a half they kept trying to throw back to MJF, who is sitting up in the press box holding his poker chip because he's gonna, he has a future title shot whenever he wants. And that's fun and all. But, and I understand the concept of why you want to emphasize that MJF is looking from the rafters, because he will have an opportunity. He could have cashed in that chip last night if he wanted to, but he didn't. He looked, and every minute and a half or every 30 seconds, they would air back up to him. And don't get me wrong, I love the camera angles I really enjoyed those camera angles, overlooking the entire arena full of crowd, and then MJF is on the top right that you could probably, it's a little speck and you can barely see him, and then you see two guys in the ring wrestling, and unless you're really paying attention, it's almost as if you couldn't tell who those guys were. So the camera angles were so. I enjoyed them. It felt was a new style of camera angles that I got a chance to see last night. But I really felt that they focused too much on MJF and they took away from the actual match. And and I think that's the only problem I see with the match. Now, I want to ask you this, listen, the commentators did a really good job by exposing or by talking about the matches. And what I love about AEW commentators is that they really dive into the actual moves that each and every athlete puts out there. And they really dive into and they really talk about them and really expose them and acknowledges them. And that's what I appreciate most. Yeah, and they're doing that while telling the story. So my question is to you: is Jon Moxley becoming the third time AEW World Champion? Is that suitable for you? Are you guys satisfied with it? I don't think at the end of the day, you can really be upset about who won. I think it was a neutral agreement that you just really wanted to see one heck of a match, and you got a chance to see that last night. I was a little disappointed that Bryan Danielson didn't win, because I think both men could do well representing the company. But the amount of respect that they have in the ring for not holding anything back, and then afterwards coming together and respecting one another and acknowledging one another, I think that's the most satisfying things that anyone can see. I think, and this is just me thinking out loud, is that they're getting ready for the next month where AEW is going to be in Cincinnati, and they think of Jon Moxley to first and foremost wanting to perform in his hometown. Tony Khan comes out and says that there's going to be a 25-man battle royal that's going to on Friday. The winner of that's going to head on over to October when they go to Heritage Bank Arena. Within the AEW Dynamite, AEW World Championship is going to be defended that night. And because it's being in Cincinnati and Jon Moxley is in his hometown, that's the only reason I could see that title, that Jon Moxley having that title. Otherwise, just to wrap it up, and we'll dive more into this here later on, over the next few days, weeks, or whatnot. I was disappointed to see Jon Moxley win, to be honest. He's held that interim title for the summer. He goes back and faces Punk and he loses. And then, he's earned his way back to the title match. And it was a phenomenal match. But it would have been nice to see Bryan Danielson get an opportunity at to hold the AEW World Championship. And it goes to wonder if he is ever going to get another opportunity again. And I sure hope so. So, that's just me in my thought process. But what a great show AEW Dynamite was last night. Man, like I said, one of the better shows to watch out. And, I was excited. I think you guys should, if you guys haven't watched it yet, and tune into it. Let me know what you guys think. All right, hour number 1 wrapped up here. We're going to take a quick time out. And when we come back, I want to dive into some baseball. All right, Reds beat the Boston Red Sox yesterday. We'll take a look at the playoff atmosphere and much more. Hour number 2 coming up here next. You guys are listening to Throw In with Justin on the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel. All right, hour number 2 here of the Throwing with Justin, taking you guys up into 11 on a Thursday morning. First day of fall, remember that. And the playoff picture becomes even more ideal as we are sitting here September 22nd, 13 games left, and it's not all bad hopes and dreams. You know, we got Bearcats playing this weekend. We got high school football this weekend. We got the Bengals over in New York, and then we got the Reds about to kick off a 4-game series with the Milwaukee Brewers. And hey, listen, splitting the series with the Boston Red Sox last night, and we'll get to the highlights here in a moment, but splitting the series with the Red Sox last night, and I mean, what better could you ask for? You know, they moved to 14-3, or 3-14. Excuse me. Sorry, moved the 3-14 against the Boston Red Sox in interleague play, and now, you know, listen, this is I know, you know, you start looking, you know, a lot of people want to shut down this season. There's still 13 games left to be played, 4 with Milwaukee. You got a couple games at Pittsburgh, then you head over to Chicago, and then you come home to face Chicago in 6 games. So 13 games, still, like I said, what's the objective here, right? You know, listen, you'll face the Red Sox again next year as new rules and regulations and the way that baseball is going to be worked out in the scheduling next year. You'll face the Red Sox next year. You worry about the Red Sox next year. Come into the series. Like I said, it's great to play some spoiler. Trying to ruin Milwaukee's playoff opportunity. They are about 2.5 games out behind the Philadelphia Phillies, who I believe who won last night against Toronto 4-3. I was just taking a look at the notes there. So they won last night to Toronto against Toronto to 4-3. And so, I mean, listen, you know, you don't want you want one team, and it's already bad enough that the Cardinals are going to win the division. One team has to win the division, and you don't, you know, the second team in Milwaukee, they're kind of on the outside looking in, and they, you know, they have 2 weeks left to play, and you want them to look, you know, they want that opportunity. They want the Padres, they want the Phillies to mess up, to lose a handful of games. And Milwaukee wants to win some games to get back in there. Milwaukee, on this case, they dropped the series 1-2 against New York and in New York, and now they get to come here. And we'll get you more detailed into that as well as the playoff picture and around the league. All right after this highlight reel from the Red Sox and Reds game last night. Well, I was having complications playing that. It would be nice if let's try that again. I apologize. Alrighty. Bear with us. And how about now? All right, try this again. Red Sox and Reds highlights.
Just a few minutes ago, Joey Votto was on the field, honored as this year's Cincinnati Reds Roberto Clemente Award winner. So he is up for the baseball-wide, league-wide distinction, giving back to the community, something he does below the radar. He doesn't want the spotlight on him, but he is out there as often as possible. Man of the people, Joey Votto, since getting honored on the field for giving back to the community, has just been milling about the ballpark, shaking hands, smiling, taking pictures in a Barry Larkin jersey. And he goes down here looking. Anderson nails the edge off speed. Joey Votto making friends. 1-2. Fairchild chips it to right, coming on hard. Verdugo, that's down, base hit. That ball lost to the backstop on McGuire, up to second. Stuart Fairchild. Payoff. Broke his back, flare to left, coming on hard Pham. Round to third, they test Pham's arm, bad throw, and it gets by the backhand of McGuire. Fairchild's in, India up to second base. Reds take a 1-0 lead.
Red Sox record being look at this one. Little squibber. Yes. That's going to be a base hit.
Yes.
Rafi will take it. Nobody home at third.
It's right. Like that's a huge issue with the game.
Base hit for the X-Man.
Do it, Rafi.
Devers was running on the plate, throwing to third. It gets by. He's going to be safe. Bogey holding it first.
Never been more difficult.
Do it. To center. Fairchild approaching, makes the grab. Rafi's going to tag. Here's the throw home. And he's safe standing up. And Red Sox have tied the game on a sac fly by Verdugo, his 67th RBI. And it's 1-1.
Looks like he'll be on in a safe situation. Launch to center. Maybe not. That's got some carry. And that's gone. 2-out thunder from Donovan Serrano. Drills a solo shot to center. It's a 5-1 game.
Xander now is 1 for 3. Flied to left, grounded a single to left, and bounced out 5-3.
Sit.
Brady coming, dives,
Yes.
and get it. That'll be a base hit. In the second base rapid, that's a multi-hit game again for Xander, and he's 2 for 4.
Yeah, every time the ball gets hit anywhere, we'll cheer it now because this is a big deal to win this batting title.
Xander Alexis Diaz comes on. Runners at first and second. 1 out in the inning here in the top of the ninth.
Grounded back to Diaz. Hit a ball flag. Throw Farmer handles out of first. Double play. That's your ball game to take the finale against the Red Sox 5-1.
All righty, those Reds split the series with the Red Sox this week. 1-1. Boston's headed over to New York, and hey, the only reason why you want to watch that series in New York is because of Aaron Judge. We'll talk plenty about him here in the moment. As you heard, like I said, I apologize. There was some complications with uploading the highlight screen, so I thought I had all that squared away. Didn't work out the way that I planned it. So you had that minute or so of silence, awkward silence there. Get back on track. Hey, listen, like I said, the series, to split the series with the Red Sox, not the greatest thing. Obviously, you would have liked to see the Reds go in there and take the series, and beat both games. But, listen, it's all about the objectives, right? And the first thing is that you're done. Right? You're done with the rest of your games are in the league. 4 against Milwaukee, and that's this weekend. You got 3 against Pittsburgh and 6 against Chicago, 3 on the road, 3 at home. And Chase Anderson, good outing, goes 5. It allows 3 hits, 1 run, 4 walks, and as Seabold, he goes 5 innings, giving up 4 runs, 6 hits, and back end of the season, repetitive the entire time. And I apologize, I'm belching here on this other end. It's like I said, see some of these guys. Jonathan India, he goes 2 for 4, scores in a run, 2 RBIs. Fairchild, 2 for 3, 2 runs in. Donovan Solano, home run, number 4. So just trying to finish off the season with the bat off a good note. And this Reds team, unlike some of the other teams, they're looking to just finish off the season on a high note, right? I mean, Aquino is batting 199. I think he would like to at least get over 200. And it's fun. It's fun to see, you have teams that, have guys like, you look at the Red Sox, you have Devers and Phams and Bozgart and Verdugo and Martinez. And, so it's fun to see these guys play, right? And especially in September, especially when the record is not in their favor. The Red Sox are 5th in the AL East. So it's great to see some of these guys. But what is also great to see is that, listen, it's been a tough season all year long. I think everyone can agree on that, right? There's no doubt about it that the Reds has struggled. But looking at some of the positive things coming out of the season is that, yeah, they unloaded a lot of people. They have departed ways with guys like, Luis Castillo, Tyler Malley, and it's frustrating. But this is reality. This is where the team is going to be at next year. These guys like Farmer, hopefully, and India and Lopez, these are your guys that are going to start making up your team next year. Anderson, possibility. Hunter Green, who will take the mound today against the Milwaukee Brewers, or tonight. These are guys that are going to really have to really step up and shape your ball club, because there's only so much free agency the Reds are going to be able to do. Nonetheless, hey, who out of free agency is the top player that's going to want to go to Cincinnati under the build that they have right now, because they could barely muster up 65 wins on the season? Still a possibility, but a very difficult. And then you look at, so you're not really going to get, a Manny Machado caliber out there. So you're really struggling you're going to really struggle this season, or this off season, trying to find some guys. So just the fact that the team is playing hard baseball in the late goings, I'm happy for. And they want to pick up a win just as much as anyone else. The Reds pick up their victory last night, 5 runs, 8 hits, and 0 errors over the Boston Red Sox, who scored 1 run, 6 hits, and 1 error. The winning pitcher was Chase Anderson. He moves to 2-3 with a 5.21 ERA. Seabold loses. He goes to 0-3, 10.47 ERA. Diaz comes in with the save, the 8th on the season. The Boston Red Sox remains in last place, record sitting at 76, as the Cincinnati Reds remain in 4th place in the National League Central, 59-90. Like I mentioned, coming into today's game, the Reds were taking on the Milwaukee Brewers. Game 1 of a 4-game series kicks off tonight, 6:40. First pitch at Great American Ballpark. Brandon Woodruff will get the nod for the Milwaukee Brewers. He's 11-4, 3.26 ERA, 162 strikeouts on the season. Last outing was against the Yankees on September 17th, where he won the game, where he went 8 innings, giving up 5 hits, 1 run, 1 walk, and 10 strikeouts. Over on Cincinnati side, you got the Hunter Green doing the pitching. He's 4-12, 4.97 ERA, 138. Another guy who would like to finish off the season strong in the ongoing, the last couple of outings. The last pitch was back on the 17th against the Cardinals, where he only mustered up 6 innings, 4 hits, no runs, and 11 strikeouts and a no decision. So a good outing from him. Won the previous outing after that with Miami back on August 1st. So like to kind of come up, give a couple good outings, chance to do it against Milwaukee, and start, like I said, make the Milwaukee Brewers make it difficult for them to earn a playoff opportunity, as they are 2.5 games out of the wild card over the Philadelphia Phillies. Well, that was just the Cincinnati Reds. I want to step aside. I want to talk a little bit about the wild card race, like we do each and every day. Couple of games going on, what to look out for today. Also, it's Thursday night football, you guys. Week 3 begins tonight. We want to dive into Pittsburgh and Cleveland, as well as getting started on talking about the Bengals 0-2, starting on playing in New York against Joe Flacco with the Jets. So still much more to come, taking you guys up until 11 o'clock right here on the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel. All right, 10:25 here on the Throwing with Justin on a beautiful Thursday morning, right here on the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel. And it is playoff season time. As we talked about the Cincinnati Reds, it's time to dive into around the league. And like I mentioned earlier in this program, I was talking about how I went after AEW Dynamite last night. I tuned directly into the Padres and Cardinals. There's a lot of playoff implication on this matchup, and we've been heavily talking about that. These are two teams that could possibly be seeing each other in 2 weeks in the MLB wildcard series. All right, and the only difference is that San Diego will be in St. Louis instead of St. Louis and San Diego. Plus, you're also paying attention to the out for Albert Pujols, and trying to hit his 700th home run on the season. So far, he's been shut down this year, this series, which has been very impressive. And the Padres are trying to make their claim. Every time they seem that they can get themselves on some sort of roll here, they seem to always be shut down by a team. And, one key factor for the Padres, if they're going to head into the postseason this year, which right now they have a highly good chance at making it, as long as they continue playing the way they can play. Okay. They have to be able to beat the teams that are going to be in the playoffs. It's one thing to beat the Colorado Rockies. It's one thing to beat the San Francisco Giants. It's another thing to beat the Cincinnati Reds, but those teams are not going to the playoffs this year. The St. Louis Cardinals are always a dangerous team in the playoffs. And the Dodgers as well. Now the Padres are going to go see the Dodgers, or going to host the Dodgers here in a few next week, to be precise. And so, as they wrap up the series, the Padres wrap up the series today. They'll play the Cardinals at 4:10 Eastern time, and we'll get you down into those leagues. But I want to take a look at for the Cardinals, just aspect what they have left to face. When they wrap up today against the Padres, they head over to LA to take on those Dodgers in a 3-game series. That's not going to be a fun series for the Dodgers or for the Cardinals in this factor. But then they take Monday off. All right. They play Tuesday and Wednesday in Milwaukee. They take Thursday off, and they have a 3-game series home against Pittsburgh, and then they head over to Pittsburgh. So, yeah, maybe the back end. All right. The back end of the series of the season here, where they have 6 games against Pittsburgh, 3 home, 3 away. That's maybe the time to rest your starters. But these next 3 series, right? Wrapping up the Padres today, then they head over to LA, and then they head over to Milwaukee. These are going to be really big series for the Cardinals, and I'm excited to watch into them, each and every one. So, as you dive in, some great things coming out. Obviously, we're paying attention to Milwaukee. We're paying attention to St. Louis. Aaron Judge, he's still at 60 home runs. He's still one shy of Roger Morris of the all-time record. All right, he is still on the pace for 65 home runs with about a week and a half left. So you take a look at yesterday's games and how some of those games went out. As I mentioned, the Padres beat the Cardinals 1-0. The Braves fall to the Nationals 3-2, and Milwaukee beats the Mets 6-0. So the East, it still stands where they stay. As last time, New York still on top. You have Philadelphia beating Toronto. So all the National League wildcard contenders are kind of still in that hunt, still in that stretch. Take a look at the American League. I told you that the Cleveland Guardians are kind of just stretching themselves out throughout the playoff to make their case to the playoffs. The Twins fall short again. while Cleveland beats the White Sox 8-2 last night. So not only Cleveland and Milwaukee and Minnesota is separating themselves further away throughout the season, you got the White Sox and the Guardians also starting to separate themselves in that race over there in the Central. Okay, Cleveland has a comfortable lead at this moment. They're now 6 games up, 8 games from elimination to clinch the Central over the White Sox. Minnesota goes down to 9. They could very well be out of it by the end of this week, and I presume. But I mean, they dropped the last 3. Cleveland's won their last 3. So some nice AL Central race is starting to shape up here at the very end of September. Okay. Take a look a little bit more going around with the wild card. St. Louis, Seattle. Okay. Seattle lost their game 2-1 in Oakland last night. So they're kind of stretching thin. Baltimore won 8-1. Tampa Bay lost 5-2, and Toronto was part of the Philadelphia's loss of 4-3. So we dive in to the standings and to the wild card picture, and I know we don't pay enough attention to the American League, but with Seattle losing, Tampa Bay losing, and Toronto losing, you're helping the Baltimore Orioles, who is trying to come into a wild card spot. Seattle was one of those teams, right? Made the stretch with Baltimore, and you're at least seeing one of those 2 teams going, but you may not be seeing the Seattle Mariners going after they really fought pretty hard. Toronto 6-4, Tampa Bay and Seattle 4-6 over the last 10 games. So all 3 teams are on losing records, while you're also taking into the Baltimore Orioles. They won their game last night. They're just 4 games out. Chicago White Sox are 5.5 games out. Minnesota starting to stretch that thin to 8.5 games out. Boston still have about 6 games before eliminated from the wild card. It's kind of, I don't know how much we pay attention to the teams that, like the Red Sox and the Twins, are sit 8-9 games out of the wild card spot with just less than 2 weeks left to go in the regular season. But it's always still worth to mention, and I mean, it's not over until it's over, and anything could happen. I mean, the probable chance, the last thing I want to do is sit there and say, oh, Boston's eliminated. Next thing you know, they're taking that 3rd spot in that wild card position. A lot of things need to happen in order for that to take place, but it can very well happen. Obviously, those Yankees and the hold on one second. Obviously, those Mets and Braves and Dodgers have all clinched playoff spots. Still up in the air for the National League East. Cardinals currently are sitting at 87-63 in the Central. Right? Take a look at the division, just 7.5 games above Milwaukee. Hey, they got out to a comfortable lead. There's about an 6 game difference before they get eliminated. Chicago sits 64-85, and then the Cincinnati Reds at 59-90, and Pittsburgh Pirates 55-94. Over in the division, though, or in the playoff race, Padres picking up another victory. They're on a 5-game winning streak. The only team to have 4+ games on a winning streak so far. They're 6-4 over the last 10, 83-66. It just feels good, the fact that they're above 500, and Philadelphia is that 3rd wild card at 81-67. Milwaukee is on the outside looking in, 2.5 games back of Philadelphia as they sit at 79-70. San Francisco Giants, 9.5 games. Arizona, just 2 games from elimination, sitting at 70-80. So the playoff race is looking pretty high up. If you're looking into today's games, you guys want to listen to some baseball, today. Some key games going on. Coming up here at 4:10 Eastern time is those Cardinals and Padres. Jack Flaherty, right-handed pitcher for St. Louis, taking on Joe Musgrove. I'm going to be listening to that. I know I will. I encourage you guys to do so also. If you guys want to look into the American League Central race, Minnesota wraps up a 3-game series with Kansas City, while Cleveland wraps up their series against Chicago tonight. So you get the first game at 2:10 Eastern, followed by an 8:10 first pitch from Johnny Cueto over there in Chicago. Also looking down the road, the Mariners wrap up their series with Oakland. If you're looking at the American League wild card race, Toronto and Tampa Bay are going to be kicking off a 4-game series tonight, beginning at 6:40 Eastern time, and Baltimore hosts the Houston Astros. So if you're looking to follow that race, one of those games, all scattered throughout the day. So there's plenty of baseball to watch. The Atlanta Braves are over in Philadelphia, as Philadelphia is trying to hold on to a wild card position, while the Milwaukee Brewers begin a 4-game series against the Cincinnati Reds tonight. We talked about that as well. So that is Thursday baseball. Plenty of games to watch out. A little bit of everything for everybody, regardless, based on if you are a local Reds fan, you want to listen to the Reds and the Milwaukee. You want to listen to the NL wild card. If you want to look and listen to the NL East, if you want to listen to the AL wild card or the AL Central, a little bit of everything for a little bit of everyone. So I know that took a little bit longer than I expected, but hey, listen, it had to be done. It had to be said. Last thing I wanted to mention about baseball before we cut the break is that the Mets has set last night a NLAL record with 106 hit batsmen of the season. We talked about this the other day with the Cincinnati Reds, how they have hit the most players. They have hit, their pitching has hit the most opponents' players at 99. And now the Mets are, so they sit at that record, probably not an enjoyable record, but then the Mets on this hand are sitting at the most batters, most players being hit from their team. So that's a couple interesting news coming out there. All right, let's take our last time out of the morning. Still taking you guys up until 11 o'clock. We got to get ready for some week 3 NFL. Okay, talk a little bit about Cincinnati Bengals and the New York Jets. And then we're going to get you ready for Thursday night football. All the news coming up, more to still to come here on the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel. All righty, we just want to give a shout out to Epidemic Sound providing the music that you guys are listening to on the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel. Epidemic Sound, discover your world-class artists, composers, and bands. Find the perfect soundtrack and give your social media accounts the music they deserve. Check out epidemicsound.com for more information. All right, let's wrap up a beautiful Thursday here with some Thursday night football underway. We got the Cincinnati Bengals this weekend playing the Jets, and I asked you guys the question earlier this week. They fall short, 2-0 on the season. 1 to the Pittsburgh Steelers, 2 to the Dallas Cowboys without Dak Prescott. And I was asking, and I still ask the question: Is it time to hit the panic button if you're a Cincinnati Bengals fan? I think that's an important question, and that's a fair question to ask. Is it time to hit that panic button if you are a Cincinnati Bengals fan? And, I was complexing because there are teams out there that start 0-2 that still have an opportunity at taking their team to the playoffs, whether it's a wild card position or if it's a divisional series victory. And so I have a list of 0-2 teams here, and I'm going to list them off. And I'm going to share with you, out of the 0-2 teams, the teams that still have a chance at having a good season. All right. Obviously, the Cincinnati Bengals is on that list, beginning off 0-2. The Las Vegas Raiders, Tennessee Titans, Carolina Panthers, Atlanta Falcons. Now, at the beginning of the season, and I don't want to jump to sail too quickly. I mean, I told you that Baker Mayfield, it was a fresh start in Carolina, and you know, this is his year to prove just how good he is. And so far, he hasn't gone off to a good start. I'm very disappointed in Baker Mayfield's performance. But if I was ranking these teams, Atlanta doesn't have a chance whatsoever. Tennessee, I'm a little surprised they begin the season off 0-2, but I'm not surprised enough to see that they're at, they gotten rid of, watching Monday Night Football and how they got destroyed by the Buffalo Bills. I was not surprised. You really got a clear image back on Monday night on just what the process and what Tennessee has done over the off season, just losing a lot of their receivers, and really their team has downgraded themselves significantly. Carolina, I am kind of keeping hopes for, but I think patience are running thin, and as the season moves on, I have to move on. And maybe Carolina is just not in that picture. Okay, I mean, I saw a really good matchup between the Saints and the Buccaneers last week to really just prove me wrong, saying that, hey, if Carolina is starting the season off 0-2 and they go into this week losing their game in week number 3, then you could kiss that division a chance at an opportunity of winning that division goodbye, or even at a wild card spot. But the two teams I really emphasize on that has an opportunity at winning or having a chance at to coming back are the Las Vegas Raiders and the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, the Vegas Raiders, okay, they just picked up an offensive tackle from New England, Justin Herron, who's 6'5", 305 pounds. He was he was in the 6th round draft by New England back in 2020. Hasn't really had a lot of playing time in the NFL. Had about 10 games. Played a part of the 2021 postseason for the Patriots. I mean, maybe it's a good addition. I don't know really what the Raiders are doing, but it's a tough division. And after seeing a really good Thursday Night Football last week between the Kansas City Chiefs and the Los Angeles Chargers, I mean, Kansas City Chiefs and the Buffalo Bills are two teams that just got done showing you that they are serious and that they are a team those are teams in the AFC that are forces to be reckoned with. And it's going to be another fun matchup when the Bills and the Chiefs meet each other again, because they will. All right, but then let's talk about those Cincinnati Bengals, because that is a team that start the season off 0-2, and yet again the rest of the division is 1-1. Now Lamar Jackson is something else, and I'll tell you that. I mean, and once they get that new contract, T's crossed, dots I's dotted, then it's really off to the races with Baltimore. And they started the season off 1-1, but I really feel like they're going to be on top of the division. Pittsburgh and Cleveland, if Cincinnati can't start performing at the peak that they're expected to, then you're going to make Pittsburgh and Cleveland look like a better team. I wouldn't hit the panic button at 0-2, but 0-2, it's easy to fall back, and you're already 2 games, 1 game back, but 2 games back for 500. And now, it's great to hear that Joe Burrow is not panicking. The Bengals are not panicking. They got 15 more weeks left of the regular season, or 15 more games. But what it takes to have to win those 15 games. you see, you have to be able to win a couple of games early on, because then when you get down into the dog days in December, those are the games where you're going to wish you had a game or two that you could give up just so that you could get your players healthy. Losing games early on makes it difficult to lose games later in the season, because then every game becomes as much crucial and you can't afford to lose a game. Take a look at the 0-2 teams and teams that surprise you that may not last. Buffalo Bills, Miami Dolphins, Kansas City Chiefs, Philadelphia Eagles, New York Giants, and Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I'm sorry. Still talking about baseball. The Bills, the Chiefs, and the Buccaneers are three teams that don't catch you by surprise. The Bills and the Chiefs, two teams that it's going to be at the top of the list. Buccaneers, now they've changed some of their personnel over the last offseason. Tampa Bay, Tom Brady now gets every Wednesday off as a veteran. And how do you handle that situation? I mean, does any NFL team has ever had to handle a situation with Tom Brady, like a guy like Tom Brady's schedule, knowing that, not only he's that damn good, but he's also a 45-year-old man who's still playing at the top peak of his performance? I don't think anyone knows how to handle that. But teams that do surprise you is the Miami Dolphins, Philadelphia Eagles, and especially those New York Giants. Now, I'm not going to jump on to Jalen Hurts quite yet. I want to see a little bit more out of that. But, when it comes out of the East, I told you that I was worried from day one that it was just going to be a Cowboys season. Now, Eagles are stepping up. The Giants are stepping up. Now, if those two teams can last, it's actually going to turn out to be a really fun, interesting East throughout the season this year over there in the NFC. The Miami Dolphins, they got a break. I mean, they're going to have to face Buffalo twice this year. I mean, let's give them the first game where you're playing at home, the humidity is high, it's hot, and it's the Patriots, and they never play good against the Dolphins in Miami. And then you had a good luck making a 20-point comeback to beat the Baltimore Ravens. It's one of those things that not many teams can do, and when they can do it, it's usually the teams that don't perform well. So I wouldn't buy too much off of Miami, and I'm still up in the air to make a decision on Philadelphia or the Giants if you could buy into that. But look at the 0-2 seasons so far this year, compare to 2-0s, and see if any teams, in your opinion, still have a chance, or are they just overrated, or they're just, we're just over exaggerating. The key question is going to come off of the 0-3 teams. And now, if New York, the Cincinnati Bengals are going into New York to face the Jets, MetLife Stadium, all right, 1:00 game. The last thing the Bengals need to do is let Joe Flacco and the Jets come in sitting at 1-1, beating the Bengals. Now, listen, it happened last time they played in New York. I remember that clearly. All right, it was a memory to forget about for sure. But the Bengals have much more to weigh on and to try to come off on a victory. They need this victory this weekend because if they don't, they start the season off 0-3. I'm very scared. I'm very scared indeed on this one. Cleveland Browns and the Pittsburgh Pirates set way to kick off week number 3. Cleveland won't have Jadeveon Clowney for tonight's game. And Dimitri Kazee, along with the Rams, Bryson Hopkins, has received a 3-game suspension for violating a substance abuse policy. They're able to return October 10th after the conclusion of week 5. I don't know with the Cleveland injuries, with the Pittsburgh's injury, how much is it going to affect this? I will say this. I do like Pittsburgh in this battle. Just because you got Mitchell Trubisky, You still haven't seen Kenny Pickett, even though the fans are screaming Kenny Pickett. Both teams are 1-1 on the season. And I mean, there's nothing that you can prove to me to let me buy into the Cleveland Browns. And I don't know if I could do that as long as Deshaun Watson is not playing a single snap. Like I said, we still have until after Thanksgiving. And then once Thanksgiving, if the Browns are still in it, then get back to me. I'll talk about it. But I really think that the Pittsburgh Steelers will begin the season off 2-1. So that is my prediction for Thursday Night Football. That is tonight on the NFL Network at 8:20 Eastern Time. Tune into that. We'll catch the highlights and we'll talk about that coming up tomorrow morning when we come back and wrap up our week from 9 to 11. We'll talk about the Cincinnati Bengals. We'll talk about some college football, some high school football around town, and we'll get you guys ready into what's going on in preparations for SmackDown. So, I got to say, it was been a very, very fun, entertaining. Loved it when everything happened. Congratulations to John Moxley, to Matt Caster, and Bowen. Congratulations to Chris Jericho and all of the above. As we say so long on a Thursday, thank you guys for tuning in to the Throwing with Justin here on the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel.